and e-payment systems by 31/12/2013. I'm also happy to say, Madam, public sector banks have assured me that all their branches will have an ATM in place by 31/3/2014. Madam Speaker, women are at the head of many banks today, including 2 public sector banks, but there is no bank that exclusively serves women. Can we have a bank that lends mostly to women and women-run businesses, that supports women SHGs and women's livelihood, that employs predominantly women, and that addresses gender-related aspects of empowerment and financial inclusion? I think we can. I therefore propose to set up India's first women's bank as a public sector bank. As a public sector bank, and I shall provide rupees 1,000 crore as initial capital. I hope to obtain the necessary approvals and the banking license by October 2013, and I invite all honorable members to the inauguration of the bank shortly thereafter. The Rural Housing Fund, set up through the National Housing Bank, is used to refinance lending institutions, including RRBs, that extend loans for rural housing. So far, 4 lakh rural families have taken loans. In the last budget, we provided rupees 4,000 crore to the fund. In consultation with RBI, I propose to provide rupees 6,000 crore to the Rural Housing Fund in 2013-14. Similarly, it is proposed to start a fund for urban housing to mitigate the huge shortage of houses in urban areas. I propose to ask National Housing Bank to set up the Urban Housing Fund, and in consultation with RBI, I propose to provide rupees 2,000 crore to the fund in 2013-14. A multi-pronged approach will be followed to increase the penetration of insurance, both life and general, in the country. I have a number of proposals that have been finalized in consultation with the regulator, IRDA. Insurance companies will be empowered to open branches in Tier 2 cities and below without prior approval of IRDA. All towns of India with a population of 10,000 or more will have an office of LIC and an office of at least one public sector general insurance company. I propose to achieve this goal by 31/3/2014. KYC of banks will be sufficient to acquire insurance policies. Banks will be permitted to act as insurance brokers so that the entire network of bank branches will be utilized to increase penetration. Banking correspondents will be allowed to sell micro-insurance products. Group insurance products will now be offered to homogeneous groups such as self-help groups, domestic workers associations, Anganwadi workers, teachers in schools, nurses in hospitals, etc. There are about 10 lakh Nota third-party claims that are pending before tribunals and courts. Public sector general insurance companies will organize adalats to settle the claims and give relief to the affected persons and families. The Insurance Laws Amendment Bill and the PFRDA Bill are before this House. I sincerely hope that the government and the opposition can arrive at a consensus and pass the 2 bills in this session. The Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana covers 3.4 crore families below the poverty line. It will now be extended to other categories such as rickshaw, auto rickshaw and taxi drivers, sanitation workers, rag pickers and mine workers. A comprehensive and integrated social security package for the unorganized sector is a measure that will benefit the poorest and most vulnerable sections of society. The package should include life-cum-disability cover, health cover, maternity assistance, and pension benefits. The present schemes such as AABY, JSBY, RSBY, JSY, and IGMSY are run by different ministries and departments. I propose to facilitate convergence among the various stakeholder ministries department so that we can evolve a comprehensive social security package. I shall come back to the House as early as possible. I believe that India's capital market is amongst the best regulated markets. This year is SEBI's Silver Jubilee year, and I offer the regulator our congratulations. A proposal to amend the SEBI Act to strengthen the regulator is under consideration. I have a number of proposals relating to the capital market that have been finalized in consultation with SEBI. There are many categories of foreign portfolio investors, such as FIIs, sub-accounts, QFIs, etc., and there are also different avenues and procedures for them. Designated depository participants authorized by SEBI will now be free to register different classes of portfolio investors subject to compliance with KYC guidelines. SEBI will simplify the procedures and prescribe uniform registration and other norms for entry of foreign portfolio investors. SEBI will converge the different KYC norms and adopt a risk-based approach to KYC to make it easier for foreign investors such as central banks, sovereign wealth funds, university funds, pension funds, etc., to invest in India. In order to remove the ambiguity that prevails on what is foreign direct investment and what is foreign institutional investment, I propose to follow the international practice and lay down a broad principle that where an investor has a stake of 10% or less in a company, it will be treated as FII, and where an investor has a stake of more than 10%, it will be treated as FDI. A committee will be constituted to examine the application of the principle and to work out the details expeditiously. FIIs will be allowed to participate in the exchange-traded currency derivative segment to the extent of their Indian rupee exposure in India. FIIs will also be permitted to use their investment in corporate bonds and government securities as collateral to meet their margin requirements. Angel investors bring both experience and capital to new ventures. SEBI will prescribe requirements for angel investor pools by which they can be recognized as Category 1 AIF venture capital funds. Small and medium enterprises, including startup companies, will be permitted to list on the SME exchange without being required to make an initial public offer, but the issue will be restricted to informed investors. This will be in addition to the existing SME platform in which listing can be done through an IPO and with wider investor participation. With the objective of developing the debt market, stock exchanges will be allowed to introduce a dedicated debt segment on the exchange. Banks and primary dealers will be the proprietary trading members. In order to create a complete market, insurance companies, provident funds, and pension funds will be permitted to trade directly in the debt segment with the approval of the sectoral regulator. Mutual fund distributors will be allowed to become members in the mutual fund segment of stock exchanges so that they can leverage the stock exchange network to improve their reach and distribution. The list of eligible securities in which pension funds and provident funds may invest will be enlarged to include exchange-traded funds, debt mutual funds, and asset-backed securities. India tosses out several thousand tons of garbage each day. We will evolve a scheme to encourage cities and municipalities to take up waste-to-energy projects in PPP mode, which would be neutral to different technologies. I propose to support municipalities that will implement waste-to-energy projects through different instruments such as viability gap funding, repayable grant, and low-cost capital. Clean and green energy is a priority of the government. However, despite cost advantages in labor, land, and construction, the consumer pays a high price for renewable energy. One of the reasons is high cost of finance. In order to provide low-cost finance, government will provide low interest-bearing funds from the National Clean Energy Fund to IREDA to on-lend to viable renewable energy projects. The scheme will have a lifespan of 5 years. The non-conventional wind energy sector deserves incentives. Hence, I propose to reintroduce generation-based incentive for wind energy projects and provide rupees 800 crore to the Ministry of Non-Renewable Energy for the purpose. The Backward Regions Grant Fund is a vital source of gap funding. I propose to allocate rupees 11,500 crore in 2013-14, as well as another sum of rupees 1,000 crore for LW affected districts. BRGF will include a state component for Bihar, the Bundelkhand region, West Bengal, the KBK districts of Odisha, and the 82 districts under the Integrated Action Plan. The present criteria for determining backwardness are based on terrain, density of population, and length of international borders. It may be more relevant to use a measure like the distance of the state from the national average under criteria such as per capita income, literacy, and other human development indicators. I propose to evolve new criteria and reflect them in future planning and devolution of funds. Honorable members will recall that in 2008-9, I had proposed the establishment of the National Skill Development Corporation. The corporation has since been set up and has done good work, but there is a long way to go. We have set an ambitious target of skilling 5 crore people in the 12th plan period, including 9 million in 2013-14. We have to pull out all stops to achieve this objective. Funds will be released by the National Rural Livelihood Mission and the National Urban Livelihood Mission to be spent on skill development activities. 5% of the Border Area Development Program Fund, 10% of the Special Central Assistance to the Scheduled Caste Subplan and the Tribal Subplan, and some other funds will also be used for skill development. I propose to increase the allocation for defense to 2,03,672 crore. This will include rupees 86,741 crore for capital expenditure. The Minister of Defense has been most understanding, and I assure him and the House that constraints will not come in the way of providing any additional requirement for the security of the nation. Despite our constraints, we must find resources for science and technology and for space, atomic energy, etc. I propose to allocate rupees 6,275 crore to the Ministry of Science and Technology, rupees 5,615 crore to the Department of Space, and rupees 5,880 crore to the Department of Atomic Energy. Honorable members will be happy to know that these amounts are substantial enhancements. While we extol the virtues of science and technology, I think we do not pay enough attention to science and technology for the common man. With the help of the Ministry of Science and Technology and the principal scientific advisor to the government, I have identified a few amazing S&T innovations. I propose to set apart rupees 200 crore to fund organizations that will scale up and make these products available to the people. I propose to ask the National Innovation Council to formulate a scheme for the management and application of the fund. Madam Speaker, continuing the tradition of supporting institutions of excellence, I propose to make a grant of rupees 100 crore each to 1. Aligarh Muslim University, Aligarh campus. 2. Banaras Hindu University, Varanasi. 3. Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Guwahati campus. 4. Indian National Trust for Art and Cultural Heritage, known as INTAC. Sports of all kinds deserve our support. We have many sportsmen and sportswomen, but few coaches. Hence, I propose to set up the National Institute of Sports Coaching at Patiala at a cost of rupees 250 crore over a period of 3 years.